Just a few weeks ago, on November 11th, Europeans in many nations paused. They stopped work. They listened to the ringing of church bells, bugle calls, and dirges, while public officials, clergy, and the descendants of the honored dead recalled anew the human price of the nearly 4 years of war from 1914 to 1918 that ended 100 years ago this year. 8.5 million people died. 21 million people were wounded. 7.7 million were missing. Ernest Hemingway wrote one of his greatest novels as a result of this, The Sun Also Rises. It was the war that was supposed to end all wars, but it only ended in disillusionment. The characters in Hemingway's novel are the ones that Gertrude Stein names as the lost generation. She wrote this, she said, "Those who died in the war lost their lives. Those who lived lost their purpose." After the war, life for so many became meaningless. There was a loss of moral identity. And that whole generation struggled to find meaning because basically their souls were wounded. It's so very interesting that today psychologists are telling us that there are new lost generations. They tell us that Generation X and the millennials are asking the same questions that Hemingway was asking after World War I. The Pew Research Center is telling us that my generation of baby boomers are also finding themselves disillusioned with the same questions. So as we begin our Advent season of 2018, we find ourselves in the midst of history-changing events in our world and in our church. So much around us seems to be imploding. Institutions that we have believed in and found our identity within have failed us. Our faith in government, our faith in church, our faith in the media, as well as so many of the larger institutions, it's been shaken. The gospel this weekend challenges us. Beware that your hearts do not become drowsy due to the anxieties of life. Be vigilant at all times. Pray that you have strength to escape these tribulations. Tal Ben-Shahar is an author of the New York Times bestseller Happier. And she has lectured on psychology and leadership at Harvard before becoming a corporate consultant. And when she meets with her corporate people, her corporate audience, she tells them that when we become disillusioned, we need to look at our souls. In his novel, Hemingway has Jake as his main character take a group of Americans and Brits of the lost generation on a pilgrimage to Spain. And along the way, he shows them the old values that could ground them again and make them into people with purpose, living fulfilled and authentic lives. If only they would open their eyes, he tells them. Well, Advent's our pilgrimage. Advent calls you and me to open our eyes and look into our wounded souls. This is a very painful time that we're living in. This is a painful time for we who call ourselves Americans. This is a painful time for we who call ourselves Catholic. Arthur Miller once wrote, he wrote, "People no longer seem to know why they are alive. Existence is simply a string of near experiences marked off by periods of stupefying spiritual and psychological stasis. And the good life is basically an amused one." Well, that's exactly what happened after World War I. People who lost their sense of purpose and meaning simply looked to be amused. You remember, it was the Roaring '20s. People pretty much fell asleep. And the result was the devastation of World War II. Now, very honestly, the church tried to get its act together back in 2002. Many, many good things really did happen. But there were so many parts of that crisis that we just did not face. And this is so similar to what happened after the war to end all wars. The people never faced their devastation, what was going on in their souls. They simply covered over the darkness, and the result of that was the ascendance of Adolf Hitler and another devastating war. Well, the church again has to face its darkness. Bishop Cunningham has made the announcement to all of us priests this last Thursday that on Monday morning on our website there will be a list of the priests who have credibly been accused of abuse. He has agonized over this, but for transparency reasons, he believes this is the time. There's a letter on the back table, that blue table in the back, from the bishop to all of you. You're welcome to take one. And if I can answer any of your questions after Mass, I would be happy to, or refer you to someone else. The challenge of disillusionment is to face the darkness and dig deep into our wounded souls and to be cleansed. If we simply try to put on a positive attitude and not dig deep to deal with the root issues creating the chaos in our world, our nation, our church, it's like putting on expensive clothing after not having showered for 3 weeks. So Advent calls us this year of 2018 to be courageous Americans, to be courageous Catholics, to face our pain, to face our disillusionment, and this will take courage and chutzpah and a lot of tenacity. We cannot ignore the pain that's inside or disregard our woundedness. The themes of Advent are darkness and light. And if we face the darkness of this painful time in our world, our government, our church, even inside ourselves with our own personal lives, if we face that darkness, a light will appear, and peace can once again wash over us, wash over our world, our nation, our church, and all of us individually. If we face our pain and the emptiness it causes, then we can heal our souls. It's entering into this vast emptiness that we can find peace. We must go into the darkness, face it squarely. It's the only way we can be healed. Because the way out is by going in. And disillusionment reminds us that there's only one relationship that will never fail. And rebuilding relationships requires us to place our trust in God and certainly not in human beings. So let us use this Advent season, these very few short weeks, to pray for the healing of our world, our nation, our church, and each one of us individually. And pray that our leaders will dig deep into their souls and not run away from the enormous tasks ahead of them. And for them to realize that it is only in facing the darkness head on that we can truly experience redemption and renewal.